Last night I had an interesting experience. I was hired to feature for a guy who was headlining in an apartment complex, which doesn't sound like much, but it's kind of an upscale place not only with a wall around it, but with security and the little booths and guys driving around a car with badges and other stuff. This place was really nice. It apparently had a number of apartment complexes within it, and then it has a little island where there's some stuff that you can get the feel of going to town without ever actually leaving the property. So it had a restaurant, and it's got a store and a bar and some other amenities. So I had to go through security just to get into this place. And I was really looking forward to it. And it was a good event. I didn't want to trash the place by any means, but I go out there. I'm thinking that there's going to be a host. I'm going to be the feature. This guy's the headliner. And it turns out this guy did not hire a host. So I'm basically hosting. I'm warming up the crowd. And it's just an extended thing. He told me going up front, yeah, take all the time you want. I had no idea why he said that. Last time I did that, I was working with a headliner who liked to do long sets because this guy had some ambition. He wanted to have as much time as possible. I think he was working on, the Netflix special, that kind of thing. And so he said, how much time are you going to use? And I always feel a little bit, a little insecure when I get asked that question. I don't know why is this guy fishing? How much? What does he mean? He said, what, 10, 15 minutes? Yeah, take all the time you want. And then it turns out there's no feature, and it's just I'm just the opener, and then this guy headlines forever. That was an experience I had a couple of times before with that one comic. This time I'm supposed to be featuring, and then it turns out Oh, no. I'm warming up the crowd. It also turned out that this place was, I didn't know what to expect. I kind of thought that going into this kind of community that it would be, there's like a rec center, and you go in and I've done it where you go in and there's a ballroom. Right, and so you set up, and you've got tables everywhere and chairs, and they've organized it into like a buffet or some kind of restaurant, some kind of dinner, and then comedy afterwards, and under those circumstances, there's certain expectations that I was entertaining anyway, and instead, in this little commercial island, there was a store, there's a bar. If you go through, they did have a rec center where kids were playing basketball and whatnot. And if you continued to the back of the building, there was a little bar. And by little, I mean really little. And then behind that, there was this larger area, kind of a breezeway. It had a roof on top of it, but it was out in the open. It was nice. There was a retention pond that looked like a little lake, and then there was a pool, and this looked like what people expect Florida to be, just a very resort type of environment. But the thing about it is, open shows those can get really weird because there's something about being crowded into a confined space that. You've got peer pressure, and it does what it's supposed to do. People get giddy, they laugh, you get them drunk, you have some fun with them. And that's kind of what I was expecting here. And instead, what I got was we're in a breezeway, and that means there's some distractions, and people tend to spread out. And when you have those little gaps, that also affects things. It affects the mood. So I'm out there doing this thing. And first thing I asked, now whenever I go and do any kind of show, I always bring a lot with me. I bring my own stands. I bring several microphones. I bring several amps. I've got 5 amps. And so I just bring some extra stuff just in case. Maybe their sound system is crap. So I had my stuff. I get there, and I find this guy's the guy that was going to be with me. He came later, and so I meet the guy that's running, and he's sweating bullets because he's worried about the show going off as it should, and he's worried about people having a good time, and he doesn't know who we are other than we're the guys on the flyer. And so he's kind of feeling me out, trying to figure out if I'm going to be any good. He's like, "Are you funny?" And I'm, "Shit, I hope so." What do I say? And he starts laughing and joking about, "Yeah, we got a guy here. He's got a big hook. So if you're not laughing, we'll just drag you off the stage." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'd like to see you try." So go get it set up. And he goes, "Oh, we got our own sound system." So he hands me a mic, and I do a sound check. And what I noticed is that it's a little scratchy. There's a little something going on. It was a wireless mic, and I think what it is that it needed more batteries. I think these wireless mics, when the batteries run low, you get some fuzzy and weird performance out of it. And so I mentioned that to the headliner when he showed up, and he had his own system because the guy's got like a flat screen, and he likes to run some graphics, and he has certain things that he does that are part of the way he does things. And so I mentioned it, and he goes, I got my own equipment, so I'm ready if we have an issue. And so then I get up there, and right out of the chute, the sound system for the club, it starts to tank like the Titanic. And I'm doing the best I can, but it's fading out. And so the headliner hands me his microphone. It's the same, I think it's the same brand. I don't want to say here what it is, but it's a commonly used wireless microphone. And he starts running it through his system, and it does sound clear. It sounds 100% better than the local one. But then I'm going along. I'm getting laughs. Things are going well. I'm having a good time. And then that mic starts to go fuzzy, and it's like, what's going now? And it just drops out. So, and the mic works, then it doesn't work, and then it works, then it doesn't work, and so then we're like, and they're just going out of their mind, like, what the hell, So I ended up handing off the mic to the headliner as he's trying to fix the situation, and I think it was a battery problem. It was just simply, it was low on batteries. You always got to feed it with brand new batteries before you start. Otherwise, you don't know what you're getting. And this thing's going to run for a long time. A comedy show is 90 minutes. And so these, you're expecting this thing to, do its thing for 90 minutes. You got to have full batteries every time. Just assume the batteries are shit, and you need Duracell or one of those, big name things. You can't go to dollar store and get your batteries in dollar store. That's not the place to buy batteries if you want the mic to run for 90 fucking minutes. So he's fiddling with that thing. I got no mic, and I got to make a choice. Do I just like shit my pants and say, "Oh, sorry," and I walk off the stage and then hope we come back in 5 with a mic that actually works? I said, "Fuck it." So I just go forth. I start yelling, "Can you guys hear me?" And I start just doing my set a cappella. And I'm getting laughs. Things are going well. I'm having a good time. I feel pretty good about myself because I'm just doing my thing. I'm loud enough. Everybody can hear me, which is good because it's open. You know, we're outside, and there's the breeze and the acoustics are, the sound disappears quickly with no there's no acoustics helping you out on that. But I did it. And then they finally fixed the mic and I get going. I'm running. And then this guy out of nowhere, he gets up on the stage. The stage is just the steps down to this pavilion type of place. This whatever it is, this backyard type of operation. He comes up the steps. He wants to go into the bar and he wants to start giving me shit. And he starts yelling at me and you're not funny. And I'm like, well, yeah, why don't you go in the bar, get something to drink, and maybe I'll be funnier. And I'm doing my thing, and people are laughing, and I don't know that this guy is a danger. I just think he's an idiot, and so I'm having fun with him, and I'm going about my business. And this guy says something like, "I'm going to kick your ass," and I'm like, "Well, you could try, but I got a hard object in my hand. Give it your best shot." So I keep talking, and this guy makes a move for me. I mean, he charges me like a bull. And fortunately, the headliner, he jumps into it, and he's, he made his money that night because he grabs the guy and he goes, "Hey, man, let me get you a beer. Let me buy you a beer." And he's like, "I don't like this comic." I'm like, "Well, let's go get a beer and let's have a talk about it." And he swing this guy out. In the meantime, everybody's like, there are moments there where people are like gasping, like, "Oh shit, it's really going to go down," right? And I guess I wasn't aware of just how much danger I was in, or I just didn't care. But it was like when it happens, like, oh man, well, I better watch what I'm saying, huh? This is how they got Tupac, and people are laughing and I'm just having a good time. And I go right back to my jokes like nothing has happened. And it was really cool. It was so cool, in fact, and the security came. It was like a fucking SWAT team showed up. This apartment complex has at least 3 guys with, all of the gear. They got the bulletproof vests, they got the clubs, they got guns and badges, and these are like fucking stormtroopers. And they came, and I have no idea whatever happened to that guy, but I just went on with my set, and everything's cool as lemonade, man. It was all right. So I did that, and I went on with my set, and then after I put the headliner up, and I knew that his mic wasn't going to go the distance, even after he put new batteries in it. So I got my stuff out. I had to run out to the parking lot. I got this 600-watt speaker. I put it on a pole. I got it all set up with the cable, and I turned it on. And I just kind of gave it a little tap. I didn't want to interrupt the headliner as he's going through the set. I just wanted something to give myself a sense of, okay, how loud is this? How loud can I get this before there's some kind of a feedback? And like, whatever. No problem. I didn't distract the guy. The guy didn't hate me for doing so. But I had this on a stick. I had this on the stand, just an arm's length from where he was. And I went off, and I just relaxed and started, sending out Facebook posts. I took a bunch of pictures and sent out some Facebook posts and, crowed about the night and how much fun I had and whatnot. And then this lady came over, and she had talked to me before the event, but, there she was again. And she had said that she was from another apartment complex, and she was acting like the talent scout. She had come to scout out our show because she was interested in setting up a show at her complex. And she didn't know who to contact to get comedy set up with her place. But she wanted to see how good it was and how well it was received and, what kind of quality of performers would be coming and all that kind of stuff. So she came up to me afterwards, and she's like, "Man, I can't believe how you handled that. That was awesome. I love the fact, this guy is like coming at you, and you just kind of blew that off, and you just continued on, and you did a fantastic set. And I don't know if I'd call it a fantastic set. I've had better sets, but that was a good set. I mean, I could hold my head up and say, yeah, and I went through 2 microphones and a guy who wanted to kill me. And I still pulled it off. I still had a good night, and that was good. I kind of rated in terms of survival. If I survived the night, then I'm pretty happy. I know some people have a higher standard. Of course, I want every joke to break, and I want everybody to laugh, and I want it to be loud and strong and all that stuff. But I'm at a point right now in terms of my abilities that if I don't fucking bomb, I'm a happy guy. And I'm working on it, but it's a process, and I'm not pretending to be. I'm not Kevin Hart. I'm not George Carlin. I'm not Richard Pryor. I'm Bill Kilpatrick, and I go out there and I try to turn those frowns upside down. I try to tell the stories I want to tell and the jokes, and I did 33 minutes. I did 33 minutes that night, even with all this crap going on. And a feature is the minimum time is 25, and typically the maximum time is 30 because you're really setting it up for the headliner. And if you get 30, I have seen sets where these so-called features got up, and they would putz around and they would stretch everything from like taffy, and they would count it. I mean, and they would make it slow and deliberate so they could make their 25 minutes. And I've seen guys do 17 and 18 and barely 19, maybe squeak into 20. I had a guy who did like 24 and 50 seconds. He was just, did I do 25? Did I get 25 out? And my situation has been completely different. I went to work for an outfit that sent us around. I call it the Kmart of comedy. We're like Mick Comics. We were doing Mick laughs everywhere. And there's a pecking order. And I kind of figured, all right. And I would go out, and I would bust it to go out and do hosting sets everywhere I could go. The problem with hosting sets is if you do too many of them, then you run out of polished material, and then you gotta replace that, because if you go back to that same outfit, that same venue, you don't want to do the same set over if people are going to remember who you were. And so I felt under enormous pressure because I was picking up every hosting spot I could get, and it was the pressure was starting to have an impact on me. And I had a period there where my wife was she wasn't seeing me at home very much, and it was kind of grating on the marriage, and I had to take a little break. And so I was out of it for about 6 months, and then I kind of tiptoed my way back into the water, so to speak, and I started picking up these sets again. But it was just kind of weird because I worked for this outfit forever, and then I started watching people pass me over, and in this business there's a lot of schmoozing, there's a lot of ass kissing, and I'm not the most independent guy in the world, but I'm going to tell you, there's only so much ass kissing I can force myself to do. I'm 54 years old. If I never make it, if I never get anywhere, fuck them. I don't really give a shit. I'm not going to kiss ass to the top. It's not happening. So I've seen other people, and they pucker way better. Maybe they have lip gloss. I don't know. But they're moving up the pipe a little faster. And so in some of these, I've kind of given up as far as upward ascension. And then what'll happen is these guys will go around and tell everybody that they're features for this outfit, and I'm people look at me like, aren't you a feature for that outfit? And I'm like, nah, I fucked up the politics of moving up, And so I had an interesting experience where I went to do just an open mic, just to grind, just to work on some material, and I got into this place, and it was a brewery. And in came these young guys who were like, they were definitely set up to do the millennial demographic, which is fine. I love millennials. Most of the comics I know are millennials, but there's sort of this there's this stereotypical millennials comic, hipster kind of like, this is the guy. Not, there's a lot of variety. I'm not trying to say all millennials are listening to the same stuff, and they're not. There's a whole bunch, but then there's sort of this stereotypical, what guys my age would think of as the millennial comic. And I remember I did this. I was supposed to go in there. I was expecting to get like 7 minutes or something in this place, and they said to me, "Listen, we'll let you do time. That's fine. However, before you can go up, we have a showcase, and they're going to go up first." And I said, "Okay, that's cool." And I just happened to find out that on the showcase was one of these comics who was picked because he's young and he fits the mold. I call him Johnny Bravo. I'm an old guy from the 70s, and I remember the Brady Bunch. Not Johnny Bravo, the cartoon, but Johnny Bravo, there's an episode of the Brady Bunch, and where the show is starting to, they're starting to jump the shark when they start bringing up sort of like moonlighting other things that they're able to do. Remember the very ends of Happy Days? Does anybody remember Happy Days? Well, at the end of that entire cycle of seasons, they started getting into other things, and of course, they're the ones that invented the phrase "jumping the shark," right? But there's another thing; it doesn't get called out as much, and that's when the characters on the show start breaking into song. And I'm not talking, the hills are alive with the sound of music. I'm talking like they come up with stupid excuses to get some character to break out the banjo, break out the guitar, sit down to the piano, start singing some shit. It's like has nothing to do with the premise of the show. They're running out of things, and these guys are looking for a life raft, and they're like, "Oh, I'm also an entertainer. I sing and I write songs and I play the piano, and watch me do this shit with a fucking kazoo." They do all of that, and I just think it's the most absurd horse shit. But in Brady Bunch land, they actually had the Bradys. They were singing la 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 la, and I don't know if they were getting competition from the Partridge Family or if that's what energized the Partridge Family, because that was a whole show where the very lovely lady had not met a very lovely man. She just apparently was incredibly fertile because she had all of these kids, and then she turned them into a showbiz family, and all they did was run around doing shows and singing, and which is what the Bradys were doing towards the end of that entire show, that entire in the later seasons. At this point, you're hearing a lot more of the Brady singers. So have I set this up enough? I think so. So what happened was they had the Brady singers going, and then Greg Brady got recruited by these Hollywood record producer type, and they wanted him to go off, and they were they called him Johnny Bravo, right? And so and he they gave him a matador outfit. What's really interesting about this is early 70s, right? And the exact same thing would happen about 10 years later to every group. It's like, how do you ruin a group? Because all the groups have like sort of this family dynamic. They're family, right? And then somebody comes along and says, "You know what? I think you should be a group. We'll go get some backup singers. We'll get a studio band. We'll get somebody to back you up, and then you can either do your songs, or we'll give you songs, and we'll just promote the shit out of you because you're what we're interested in." And that happened with Van Halen. David Lee Roth got sucked into that. That happened with Genesis. The drummer guy, Phil Collins, he kind of went off on his own thing. And even where it didn't happen, whoever writes the songs always ends up running the band. And they end up with all the money, and then everybody fucking hates them. And then and if they do have they do come back, they're like, we'll come back, but that asshole, he's not coming with. So you end up with these weird things like Journey without Steve Perry, right? And you end up with Styx without Dennis DeYoung. And I understand, they had one guy, my back, and another guy, my eyes, and whatever, and he's shuffling his feet, and the band's like, fuck you, let's just go get some guy who sounds like you. Whatever. But there was an episode of Brady Bunch, and Greg Brady, the oldest kid, the oldest boy, he gets the people come and they're like, hey, you're going to be Johnny Bravo. And all right, my brothers and sisters will be happy. And you don't have any brothers and sisters. You're Johnny, Johnny Bravo. And so he goes off and he does it. And the funny thing in the episode, a spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this in 40 years, I'm gonna ruin it for you. The guy gets in the studio. Greg Brady gets in the studio, and he hears the finished recording, and it's not even his own voice. And he goes, "Hey, what happened? That's not even my voice." He said, "No, man, we don't want your voice, man." He said, "Why did you recruit me?" And the guy goes, "You fit the suit, man." You fit the suit, right? So, what does that have to do with anything? Let me stop thinking. I go on these rants. I go to strange places. I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, okay. So you got these guys. The brewery. Okay. See, I'm not completely gone. So here's the deal. I'm at this brewery. I'm there to do 5-7 minutes, whatever I can get, so I can work on some material. And they say, "Nah, that's great, man, it's great, but we're gonna bring in, we got a showcase. These are, important people are coming. Ooh, step out of the way." So these important people come through, and the most important of them is this feature comic, who is the shit. He is the stereotype. He is the millennial's millennial. He is the hipster Jesus. Da 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 da. And here he comes, right? And he gets up there, and he eats a dick. He goes in there, and apparently there weren't enough millennials to support his fledgling dreams in there, because he gets up there, and it's just a shitty night. And the thing is, the guys in the brewery, they're like blue collar people. They don't want to hear hipster jokes. They don't want to hear. You got to understand, room to room, it's all different, right? And a coffee shop does not want to hear dive bar jokes, and dive bars don't want to hear coffee shop jokes. And this place, it threw a little hook in there, because even though these were burly, blue collar guys, they didn't want to scare off their existing customers. So they wanted it on the cleaner side of things. But that's the weird thing. People will tell you to be clean, and then you go clean, you're too safe. And they're like, "Oh, you weren't that funny." I'm like, "Yeah, what would be funnier is if I just got to tell my jokes and you get the fuck out of my face. That would be awesome. That would be awesome, Chester." So, but these guys have kind of put it out there, and the millennial Jesus I think he just shit his pants and hit the floor. It was terrible. It was terrible. And so we went through 4 of these guys, and these sad sack motherfuckers, they just all sucked. And so then it got opened up. It got opened up for open mic time, and let other people go ahead of me, and then I got up there, and they told me I could do as much time as I wanted, and I did like 20, 25 minutes off the cuff, and I had the joint rolling. Everybody was having a good time. I did not have the following of Millennial Jesus, so I didn't have those extras. Those guys went out the door with their savior. But everybody else that was laughing, I was having a good time. Everybody's laughing. It was like the first time they'd actually had any comedy that night. They had gone through 4 of these coffee shop comics. And finally I got up there and I started talking, doing what I do. And I had such a good time with that. And it's just, so I guess what I'm saying is I'm on the low end politically. So I like for that one outfit that I was referring to earlier, they've kept me as a host, and I'm doing 15-minute sets, but I've got so many of these 15-minute sets. And, you know, what do you got to do? You make people happy. You wake people up. You take the worst, because being the host again and again and again means you got to take people when they're the least. You got to warm them up, and you got to get them involved, and you get them excited, and you create a foundation, a platform, so the other comics can do well. And I've hosted so much that I have to watch myself. I have to be careful on the time, and I divvy things up all the time. I don't do the same set. People often say, like, "Well, how much time do you have?" I say, "Well, how much time do you need?" You know, and they're like, "Well, what's your last joke?" And I go, "Well, it depends on the night." You know, because every joke. No joke is completely done. Every joke is a work in progress. You think, I got laughs. Okay, well, that's we hit the beach on that. And now, how do we tag that up? And then, is there an act out? And could we look at this from a different direction? Or could we pair this with another joke? Or could I use a transition that creates a context, of like a moral, a framework for this joke? You know, like my wife has a lot of these. She kind of like says funny things. Like I have a joke. These are things that happen where, like, one time when Steve Jobs died, I saw it. I was reading through the news feed and I said, "Hey, Steve Jobs is dead. What do you know about that?" And she goes, "Steve who?" I go, "Steve Jobs." And she says, "Oh, I thought you meant the other Steve." I said, "Steve Wozniak?" She said, no, the other Steve. I said, "At Apple?" She goes, no, at Microsoft. I said, "Steve Ballmer?" She goes, no, the other Steve, Bill Gates. And I don't know, for some reason I think that's funny. Every time I tell that joke, people laugh. But it's like, what is that joke really about? Is it my wife's an idiot? Is it just a joke that plays off a bunch of Steves? Is it about the similarity between, the head of Apple and the head of Microsoft? And I've taken that joke and used it to talk about, men and women don't listen to each other. My wife, one of the things, that I could do better as a spouse and a companion, listen, men have that problem. That's like a recurring complaint. They don't listen. And so, there and once you set that out as a premise, then you have to figure out, well, what's the punchline? And the obvious one is, she said, "I don't listen." She said a bunch of other things, but I don't remember what it was. That's the "I'm still asleep and here's the joke." That's that's just very obvious. So you try to think, how do I position this? And I saw this joke and I thought, this joke is also an example of how women don't listen. Because I really think what happened is that I was talking to her about something and she wasn't paying any attention. And then I kind of caught her. And then she kind of had, she had to play it off. And I think the biggest problem with that is that she didn't want to come out and say, "Listen, I wasn't listening carefully. Would you just repeat?" Because then I'd have busted her lady balls about, you don't listen either, right? But instead of, walking into that bear trap, she tried really hard not to admit that she'd never been listening in the first place, or only half listening. And so, I think when you do transitions, a higher order, when you're doing transitions, is to position the joke. This joke is an example of something. And so a transition isn't just, I'm going to change subjects. That's like moronic ABC, speaking of bananas, you got like 5 jokes and they have nothing to do with each other, and you just keep, finding weird ways to spidey web your way from. I was talking about the Holocaust, and now I'm going to talk about the price of tea in China, and now I'm going to talk about handcuffs, and then I want to talk about candles, so people will use transitions to try to string together what is essentially a finite number of jokes that they have, and they don't have a bunch of jokes on the same topic. If you take and look at comics set, like somebody's doing a special or they made an LP, look at that. They make an album, it's a group, an album. Now it's all just streamed, but they make it and then they have names and jokes, and you'll see a joke and it's 8 minutes long, and you're thinking, Jesus Christ, how does somebody have 8 minutes? And then you look at this topic and you're like, they got 8 minutes on the phases of the moon or something. It's like, how in the hell do they have 8 minutes on that? And then if you listen to that particular recording, and what you discover is that these are several sets. These are several bits that have been glued together. They've been fused together. In some situations, somebody's done a little bit of monkeying around in the studio, and on the recording, they have carefully edited them all together to create a kind of best of track. But when they're being, let's say, authentic and they're not trying to play games, what they'll do is, some guy got on stage and he talked for 8 minutes. But what happened was that there was a bit about this, and then there was a bit about this, and then there was a bit about this. And when he over the course of his career, he started moving bits around, and they clumped together. And if you're growing your material, then you can just rearrange how you clump bits together, and that's where these transitions come into play, because you could have a whole set and it's about how women don't listen to men, and you might have several examples of that. And what happened is you didn't sit down and come up with those examples. What happened is you found something funny, you wrote it down, you performed on stage, people laughed, and then you thought, okay, well, I'm going to use that. And it might have been in any order. It might have been, part of any number of things. But then as you maintain your creativity and you wrote more material and you put stuff together, what ended up happening is you started putting things together in different ways. And you could end up very easily having something that was a 1 minute joke, but then you tagged it and you acted it out, and then you found other jokes that were like it or extensions of the theme. And next thing you know, that 1 minute it's a 2 minutes, it's 3 minutes, it's 5 minutes. And then, that thing could be an 8 minute joke. You could have an 8 minute joke that started out as one joke, and then you just had a constellation of jokes, and they seem to fit together really well. And that's where the transitions come into play. I have a number of these things where my wife she's just not listening. I have one where, and I don't know why it's all obituaries, but when Neil Armstrong died, and then Hollywood went to work because there was a book about Armstrong's landing. There was the anniversary coming up, and then they wanted to make the movie fit the coming of this anniversary, which, by the way, I think is an ineffective way to sell a movie. Nobody cares what I think, but I've seen this where they lined a movie up. And I do the same thing when I'm going to go topical. I'm going to go out there and, it's New Year's, so I'm going to go do New Year's jokes. Or it's Cinco de Mayo, or it's July 4th, or Halloween. Terrible idea. Nobody cares. And to the extent they care, then everybody's doing it too. And I have never seen a crowd more receptive to a joke because it was at the right time. Like, oh, wow, this coalesces with this date, this anniversary, this event. It is a self-defeating. It is, you think you're being smart, and I don't see it. I don't. And I've had lots of experience having it blow up in my face. You come to realize when people go to a bar or a restaurant or they go to some event, they just want to be entertained. They want you to tell them something that's funny. They don't give a shit what day of the week it is or what holiday is occurring, unless it's a charity event in honor of something, unless it's for some political rally, unless there's a theme to the entire, to the events of that night. It's a stupid idea, and it doesn't work. And I never cease to watch it blow up, just bah! Somebody's covered in shit every single time somebody tries to do it. It just doesn't work. Now what? Why did I even bring that up? I gotta go trace my. Yeah, my wife. My wife does some things like she did this. Yeah, reading the obituaries and Steve. Is it Steve? Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong dies, right? And in the obituary, and I go, oh man, Neil Armstrong died. And my wife catches my wife. She's not listening. She goes, well, what? And I said, Neil Armstrong died. She goes, oh, they wouldn't leave that poor man alone. I said, what? He won 7 Tours de France. He just went up and down those hills. And, he had cancer. He had testicular cancer. He did all that with one ball. And I'm like, yeah, it was a real tragedy, honey. It was a real tragedy. That actually happened. I mean, there's a little embellishment in some of the turns, but that actually happened. And it's like, to me, that fits the context of she's not listening. And so, but you can only string so many of those together, right? You can overdo it. I have a third situation, and again, this really did happen. We're talking about going out to eat, and I really didn't want to spend a lot of money, but I'm willing to spend money on food. If you ever seen me, I'm somewhere between $250 and $260 on any given day, and I don't mind eating food. I don't mind spending the money if it's for good food. I like food. It's the only thing at this point in my life I can really afford is to abuse my body with delicious food. And I said, why don't we celebrate our anniversary? Let's go someplace. And she says, where? And I said, well, just you pick. She goes, what about Red Lobster? Now, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a seafood lover, right? And that's what it says at Red Lobster. For the seafood lover in you. I'm not a seafood lover. I know what it is. I don't know why, but I think I need the fat. Like the only fish I really like is the fatty fish. And, like this rock lobster it's the one that tastes the most like steak. And in part because it's just gobs and gobs. It's the fattiest fish you can, just about the fattiest fish you can get, that and salmon. Some other things. So she's like, let's go to Red Lobster. And I'm like, She goes, why? What's wrong with that? And I go, I don't like Red Lobster. And she goes, why? And I go, I don't like fish. And she says, but you said we can go anywhere. We could eat anything. And I go, not seafood. And she goes, Nazi food? You want to eat Nazi food? And I thought it was the weirdest thing. Yeah, I want to eat Nazi food. Let's go to International House of Pancakes. Let's get some Luftwaffles. What else can I say? What other stupid puns can I put in there? So that one doesn't completely work. I get some laughs, but yeah, you talk about Nazis or Hitler, and people's butts pucker like nobody's business. So it's that's a risky move. And it's I'm at the point here I don't want to be so safe. I don't want to be like Jimmy Fallon safe, where it's all nice and kind and gentle and don't we love each other, and let's make some balloon animals. But at the same time, I don't like going up there and doing a joke and then people don't laugh. And it hurts. I feel like I get a Charlie horse every time I tell a joke and nobody's laughing. You got to just power through that. But if I had a choice between laughter and people going, what the fuck? I'll go with the laughter. You know, I'm not a masochist. So I don't know. So I have made it my strategy to set up gigs of my own, go in there, and sometimes I'll make an open micer, and sometimes I'll do a showcase, and sometimes I'll do a full show, and I'll bring in features and headliners, and more these days I'm featuring, and I've done some headliner gigs, but I don't go around telling people that I'm a headliner because I think I don't want to be that, I don't know. I don't want to be the guy who's bragging, crowing. I want other people to say I was good. I don't want people to say, oh, he thinks he's so awesome. No, he just doesn't want to bomb. He wants to do well. I don't know. I like writing. I'm really a writer. And I go out there to perform the jokes because I want to hear a response to that. I laughed when I wrote the joke. I had fun when I wrote the joke. I love the joke. Now I want to share that joke with other people. And what I discovered early on in my career was that 80% of this is performance. And there are some people who are really performers and not writers. And they get lots of laughs because they're performing something they do all the time. They're giggling. Like, I know one guy who looks like a mop. He's just a mop head full of hair, and he's skinny, and people call him funny names, and that guy's funny. Wherever he goes, people find him funny because he's a funny personality, right? I know guys big, fat, as fat as a barn door, and he looks like Jabba the Hutt. He looks like he's going to die at a very early age. He looks like if you cut him, out would come nothing but glue, red, bloody glue, because his cholesterol's so high. But the reality is, people find him funny. What I've noticed is that people who tend to be performers, they don't tend to do as much writing. The writing it's not as good. It's not as involved. It's not as, elaborate or complex. And the people that are writers, they really got to work on performing. And that's the thing that got me. I had so many people saying that I sucked and I was terrible and all this stuff. Yeah, I probably did suck. I probably was terrible. But that's not your potential. That's just, how you did that night. And then, I don't know, I got away from Orlando. Orlando was my local scene. But I don't live in Orlando. I live in a town called Lakeland, halfway between Orlando and Tampa. And there hasn't been any real scene in Lakeland. There's nothing. There's the only place. There's one real comedy establishment here, and they don't care about the local comics. They don't do anything to help the local comics. They don't lift anybody up. So it's not really a center. All they do is import headline features and headliners who come in and then do a bit and then they move on. And so Lakeland's got, jack shit for our local comedy scene. And it's taken a little bit of something to get something rolling, something going in this town. I live in Lakeland. I have to drive an hour to go do any comedy. So I'll hit Orlando, and then some weeks I'll hit Tampa, and then other times I'll drive a couple of hours and go out to Brevard County, which is the Space Coast, the east coast of Florida, Melbourne, Cocoa Beach, all that kind of stuff. And then moving up to Daytona. And so I'm kind of I'm nobody nowhere, but I've done most of my growing as a comic in Orlando, and I took a lot of shit coming up. People looked at me, I'm older, and then they could make fun of me, and I was an easy target. And then I started going out to other places, and those places didn't know me at all. And so I just walk in, and I'll go, and I can do material they've never heard before. And everybody's like, what the fuck? This guy's great. And that's what I found. If I leave and nobody's ever, seen me grow up in the scene, I'll go into some new spot and people will just go bananas over me, like, because I just didn't exist, and then I come in and I'm pow, and they're like, wow, this guy's sensational, and that's what I got to be doing a couple years into it. And then I would go back to Orlando, and I remember when I hit a scene, I did some room, and these people like, Kilpatrick was the worst comic we ever saw. How the hell he get so good out of nowhere? And it's like, he didn't get good out of nowhere. He ran his head into a wall, into lots of places. He just got tired of being run down by people here locally, and I don't live in Orlando, so I don't have to go to Orlando and have people shit on me. I can go to other spots and work it out. So, there was surprise, but it's a grinding thing. Get out there and you grind away, and you're always learning new lessons as you go, and it's weird. I learn more from failure than from anything else. And I'm good at it. I'm a really good failure. And I've had fun with this. And I look forward to doing it for a long time to come. As long as I got wheels on my car, as long as I got, as long as I got something going on, I'm going to go do it. I am the long shot. I am a real long shot, and I'm not the I'm not the favorite. I am the guy most likely to fail. But I've had good experiences. And doing this thing last night where they threw everything at me, I went through 2 shitty mics. I had to yell my set. I had a guy try to kill me. And I ended up picking up recruitment. Somebody recruited me to do a set in the summer because she was apparently impressed with what she heard from me that night. It was kind of unbelievable. It was fantastic. So, and that may never pan out, right? I mean, that's a long time to wait to see what happens. She may lose my business card. I have a business card, by the way, and I know that some people consider that like the hallmark of a douchebag. Having a business card doesn't make you funny. I know that. I'm not trying to impress people with that. What happens with a business card is that there are a lot of people that are old school, okay, and they don't know anything about comedy, and so when you hand them a business card, it immediately gives you a sense of legitimacy. They immediately think, "Whoa, this guy's all right. He's got a business card," and then they can get in touch with you more easily. You don't have to write your shit down over and over and over. I get sick and tired of that. Hey, and the reason I came up with the concept of a business card is that people kept asking me about my business card, and I kept coming up with excuses for why I didn't have a business card. It's kind of like, well, I'm a comic, we don't do business cards, And that's bullshit, That's a business area. That's bullshit. If you want to see if someone's any good, go watch them on stage. If they make people laugh, then you hire that asshole. Just get his number, But yeah, I don't do that. Somebody says, "What you got a business card?" And I go, "Fucking A." And I pull out a business card to give it to them. And I've had times they ask me for my business card and nothing happened. And then other times they ask for my business card and then I get calls, That's just, that's fine. So I gave out my business card to her, and the reality is she could lose my card. She could get fired from her job, or the guy that she recommends me to, he could get fired, or they could change their mind. So there's any number of things that could happen. I consider it a win that she came up to me and started talking to me about business. She wanted to book me. Because even if that never happens, even if nothing comes from it, it's that somebody wanted to do it. It means that I'm on the right course, and I just need to stick it out, keep going with it, which is kind of cool. So I did that last night, and in a way, the way that worked out last night, it was something I really needed, because I needed a sign from the heavens that, the God and the Jesus and the angels were looking down, and they were saying, "Hey, man, keep going. Don't quit. Don't quit. You can do this." Because it's like, there are only 10,000 comics out there, and making it is like lightning striking, and I'm not the most outgoing guy. I am an introvert. That's why I'm talking on this thing. But I'm not young. I'm not good looking. I'm not skinny. I got a lot of marks against me. But when I get out there and I tell a joke and people laugh, that makes me feel like I'm on the right track. And I'm so used to having to kick my own ass to keep it within 10 to 15 minutes. And if I'm not careful, I can go over. And I've gotten in trouble for doing 22 minutes on a host set. You got to watch your time. That's part of being a professional. And I do it, but it's hard to do it when you keep writing and you keep doing stuff, and so I've been in a box, and the only way I've been able to handle that has been to come up with, here's one 15-minute set, and here's another 15-minute set, and here's the third 15-minute set, and here's a fourth. I got all this time, and then if somebody says to me, take all the time you want, I go up there and I plop 33 minutes, and that was with all the crap that was happening. So I feel pretty good about that. And it's like that time in the brewery. I mean, they let me go and you had all these VIPs in the pecking order of the local scene, and they all ate a dick. And then I got up there and I scored, and I met the old guys, and I gave out my cards, and that worked out great. Nothing happened as a result. I'm not in charge of that scene. There already is a guy there, and that's the only time I went there. I didn't really want to go back. I want to go on to something fresh. But it's kind of cool when things work. Every dog has his day, and sometimes they have their night, and last night was mine, which is another indication that I'm a dog. So that was fun, and I appreciate you listening to this one. And holy shit, I've been talking for about an hour now, and I think I'm at 57 minutes. And if you got to the end of this, then please accept my humble apologies for dragging you through it. But I did have a lot of fun, and it's just another indication that you just got to work and not get discouraged, and just do your thing. Take each experience, learn from it, and build. And you never know where this thing's going to end up, and that's part of the fun of it. So anyway, thanks for listening. My name is Bill Kilpatrick, and this is Carpooling with Myself.